Rhett is very special. Rhett was very special as well before he had his injury, but he is a different person now. People who take care of people who have brain injuries can understand what I'm talking about. They really become a different person. Rhett's injury has changed my life in many ways. My other son and I spend a lot of time taking care of him, as well as his extended family. And you don't expect your kids to live with you forever, especially if they're injured. That's just not the natural course I think that people expect. And you know, I don't want Rhett to spend his life on the couch or at home. You know, I would really like for him to venture out and be in a place where he can go to school and reach his peak. I hope that people are understanding of people with brain injuries, because it's not their fault that they had a brain injury, but it's definitely an injury that requires extra patience, extra understanding, things like that.
Today, the Insider Exclusive goes behind the headlines in football injuries, Ripell Helmets' first $1 million legal defeat, to examine how Frank Azar at Franklin Azar and Associates successfully won a landmark $11.5 million verdict, the first of its kind, against Ripell, the country's largest helmet manufacturer, and some Colorado high school coaches, for failure to adequately warn players wearing their football helmets about the dangers of potential concussions. Ripell is responsible for $3.1 million, or 27% of the $11.5 million in damages that were awarded to 22-year-old Valerie Ridolfi, who sustained a head injury at Trinidad High School in Colorado and was paralyzed on the left side of his body during a football drill in 2008. At a time of rising anxiety about the dangers of brain injury in football, justice is bearing down on Ripell as if the country's largest helmet manufacturer were a punt returner without any blockers. Ripell is the country's largest manufacturer of football helmets. Although many people have tried to sue similar companies that make helmets in the past, few people have won these lawsuits. Unfortunately for Ripell, hundreds of other similar cases are currently pending against them. Currently, Ripell and the NFL are being sued by more than 4,000 retired players and their spouses, claiming that both the league and Ripell knew about the long-term health risks associated with repeated concussions and head trauma. Making matters more complicated, the private equity owner of Ripell's parent company has reportedly decided to put the company up for sale. Easton Bell Sports, which makes Ripell helmets for the National Football League and other equipment for the National Hockey League, is being prepared for a sale by its private equity owner in a deal that could fetch as much as $900 million. Most helmet manufacturers follow safety standards set by the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Equipment. Critics have accused the industry-supported association for not setting more rigorous safety standards and having too many conflicts of interest to be considered unbiased. After years of denial, the NFL has conceded that medical research shows a connection between repeated head injuries and degenerative brain disease. More than a decade ago, the sports equipment manufacturer Ripell was developing a highly anticipated new football helmet designed to reduce players' risk of concussions. The helmet was ambitiously called the Revolution. It became the most widely used helmet in the NFL, earning millions for the company in sales to players, colleges, high schools, and youth leagues. Ripell designed the Revolution helmet with the help of biokinetics at the Ottawa-based biomechanical firm, which was also working with the NFL's Minor Traumatic Brain Injury Committee to test helmets and study head injuries. As early as November 2000, Ripell received a warning from Chris Withnall, the senior engineer at Biokinetics, a study showing that no football helmet, no matter how revolutionary, could prevent concussions. In fact, the report stated even a helmet that had passed the industry's safety standard for protection against skull fractures and other severe head injuries could leave a player with a 95% likelihood of receiving a concussion from a strong enough blow. Frank Azar revealed this report in this landmark trial, But it did not deter Ridolfi from marketing the helmet as protection against concussions. Ridolfi promoted the revolution by saying that the players who wore it were 31% less likely to suffer a concussion, a figure criticized as an exaggeration by leading experts on head injuries and some members of Congress. In 2002, the revolution quickly became popular among NFL players and youth athletes. The Indianapolis Star wrote, "The product of years of research, Ridolfi's revolution is being marketed as a first-of-its-kind helmet, one designed to reduce the risk of concussions." After the revolution took the country by storm, Ridolfi hired some of the premier concussion researchers in the country at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center to study the new helmet. The findings of the study, published in the February 2006 edition of Neurosurgery, became a point of controversy. According to Ridolfi, the study found that athletes wearing the Revolution had a 31% decreased risk of concussion, but the UPMC authors disputed that claim. UPMC not only disputed that claim, but notified Ridolfi that this data should not be used as a marketing ploy or a marketing tactic from a scientific paper that was not done for those purposes. Dr. Robert Cantu, a neurosurgeon and leader in the field of sports-related concussion research, wrote a comment published in Neurosurgery noting that the study contained a serious, if not fatal, methodological flaw. As Revolution sales soared, more than 2 million were sold between 2002 and 2008, the helmet company's claims caught the attention of Senator Tom Udall. Udall sent a letter to the Federal Trade Commission about what he called misleading safety claims and deceptive practices in the helmet industry. He singled out Ridolfi's 31% claim and wrote that he was particularly concerned about the marketing of the Youth Revolution helmet. Today, Ridolfi finds itself caught in the line of fire with little protection to guard themselves from the hard hits that they may take in the pending NFL concussion litigation. Frank Azar has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in Denver, in Colorado, and in the United States. His goal is not only to get justice for clients, but to make sure products are made safer and manufacturers more accountable. Frank has built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. His amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Denver, Colorado. It is my great pleasure and privilege to introduce Frank Azar to the show. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Tell our audience a little bit about your practice.
I've been practicing law in Colorado for over 30 years. We're mainly plaintiffs. We're the largest plaintiffs' personal injury law firm. We do, most people know us as kind of the auto accident people, but we do quite a bit of other work. We've done class action work. We did all the wage and hour class action work against Walmart. We have a number of class actions going on now.
That was a huge settlement.
Yes, big,
yeah.
Very big. We do a lot of products liability cases too, a lot of the drug cases. We were involved with the first FinFin case in Mississippi, and we've been doing that for over 15 years. Mm-hmm. A lot of pharmaceuticals and medical devices. We're doing a lot of the hip cases now, and we do a lot of stuff. But most people here in Denver would just know us as, one of the personal injury lawyers if you get in a car wreck. But yeah, we do a lot of different other stuff.
Today we're here because you were involved recently and got a rather large verdict against the largest and most successful helmet manufacturer, Ridolfi. $11 million verdict, 11.1.
11.5.
11.5. And it was a very unique case. Before we talk about some of the legal issues that you were involved with in the case, let's talk about your client, Ridolfi.
You know, I've done a lot of cases over the years. I've represented a lot of people that have really, really been hurt. And in my opinion, Rhett suffered the worst injury of anybody I'd ever seen.
High school football player.
Yeah, at 17 years old. And the problem with it is that Rhett's brain damage was not severe enough to basically turn him into one of these people that you see on a ventilator or as a vegetative-like state. He can function, but he's got such severe damage to the frontal lobe of his brain, he has no impulse control. Mm-hmm. And that makes it very, very dangerous for him because he doesn't have the judgment function that the rest of us do, and he can't make decisions, or he can't basically process information like the rest of us do. And he's a danger to himself and to other people. And it's, from that standpoint, it's a very, very serious case.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the facts of the case. What happened to Rhett?
It was August 14th, 2008. It was the beginning of the first day of full contact pads at a small high school in my hometown of Trinidad, Colorado. And he was involved in a drill called the machine gun drill, where one player is in the middle and he's hit by successive players. What happened is there was a helmet-to-helmet hit, and Rhett basically suffered what we call a translational injury to his brain. At that point in time, you could see from the video that he was dazed. Shortly thereafter, he vomited. In our opinion, he should have been sent to the emergency room right away. Mm-hmm. But the coaches, for a variety of reasons, didn't do it, didn't act promptly, and he wasn't sent to the emergency room for almost 9 more hours. Mm-hmm. Then he was flown to Swedish Hospital in Flight for Life, and he had emergency brain surgery. But he did suffer very, very serious injuries to his brain. And one of the worst injuries he suffered is he's got hemiplegia, which means that he's paralyzed on his left side. He's basically only got the use of his finger this much, and his hand is cupped. Also, his foot is always at this angle. They've got a brace for him so that he can walk. Right. But he's paralyzed on his left side. And he basically can't do any of the things that you and I normally do, drive a car. He can't participate in any sports, nothing.
And he's about 22 today.
Yes.
He's going to be on our show later.
Yes.
But before we bring him on, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges in filing a lawsuit against Ridolfi and the coaches that you faced, and what did you have to prove?
Let me say this. These guys, Ridolfi, fight these cases very, very effectively, and nobody has really beaten them on the issue that we basically found wrong with his helmet. I went to a lot of the big national top lawyers, and they didn't want to have anything to do with this case. And I had trouble finding experts. There are not very many people that were familiar with this helmet. Fortunately, I found an expert in Ohio that had been involved in testing these helmets for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. And based upon his testing and his familiarity with this helmet, we found out that the front pad that made was not as good a material as the rest of the materials in the helmet, which is a material called vinyl nitrile. And basically what happens is this pad, as the temperature increases, the ability for it to absorb energy decreases. So our theory is that when Rhett collided with this other player, that the brain was moved forward. He suffered a translational injury. It tore a bridging vein in the subdura of his brain, which started a slow bleed.
Yeah.
As this bleed increased, it's kind of like a flood, and it started increasing the amount of blood going into the brain and started tearing more and more blood vessels. And eventually it moved his whole brain 1.9 centimeters from the midline of the brain.
Really?
An incredible injury. And he was lucky to be alive. Thank God he had a great neurosurgeon, Dr. John McVickers, who's probably one of the top neurosurgeons in the world. And he was able to save Rhett. But if he hadn't done a great job, Rhett wouldn't be here today.
Today we are fortunate to have Rhett and his mom here, Valerie, so we're going to bring them on right now. It's my great pleasure to introduce Valerie and Rhett Ridolfi to the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
This has been a major case, national attention. This is the first verdict against a helmet manufacturer, Ripell. And unfortunately, you know, you were the victim in this. Take us back, Val, to the time that you were first notified that Rhett was injured. What do you remember about that time?
Well, I remember primarily emotional details just because of the gravity of the situation. I remember walking.
And you are an ER nurse. You were an ER
I
nurse.
have worked in
So you're very familiar with these injuries.
Yes. I remember walking into the emergency department after being notified that Rhett was there late in the afternoon, and he was already intubated and on his way to CAT scan. So I knew at that point that we were looking at much greater injury than just a minor broken bone or a very minor concussion.
You knew that you had to get him to the best medical professional as soon as possible, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And where they were sending him did not have that facility, is that right?
Well,
initially?
Initially, yes.
So you knew he had to get over to, what was the name of the center?
We went to Swedish in Denver.
Yeah, you knew this was the best place and you got him over there, didn't you? You insisted on it, didn't you?
I did. They have an excellent neurotrauma program.
You know, I was really impressed with that because most people would not have known that. You know, most mothers are not emergency. How long have you been a nurse?
23 years now.
Yeah, you don't have the background that you have and have seen these kinds of injuries. Do you remember anything about this during that time, Rhett?
Not too much, really, Steve. Yeah. It's like a blur. I don't remember much from that whole half the year. But I just bit a little couple bits and pieces here and there, but not too much.
Yeah. It has been 4 years?
5 years.
5 years.
August 08 is when I got hurt.
How have you seen him progress in the last 5 years?
Well, definitely he has made a lot of progress.
Yes.
He's walking better now. His left arm still doesn't work real great.
Getting stronger though.
It is getting a little stronger.
You're doing therapy?
Yeah, I try to work it out as much as I can, use hits.
Yeah. He does his own activities of daily living, takes care of himself.
Yeah.
Pretty darn well. So he has made a lot of progress. You know, he does deal with depression intermittently. So, you know, not every day is a great day.
Is that, Rhett, is that the depression? Is that primarily because you remember what you used to be able to do and you can't do those things today?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
It just makes me feel sad and useless that I have a messed up arm and leg and stuff. I just feel like crappy a lot of times sometimes.
You always wanted to play football, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved football.
You love it even today, right?
I still watch it. I still like it a lot.
Your favorite team is the Chargers?
Yeah, San Diego.
How do you deal with the fact that you now realize you can't do a lot of the things you used to do before? How do you work that out in your mind? You must get mad.
Yeah, well, I can do a lot of stuff I used to be able to do, but I just, sometimes it ain't too bad, I guess. I just try hard. Try to do my best for everything I do.
This has been a big case, Valerie.
It has.
Huge verdict. We're on national TV right now. What do you have to say to the defendants, Ripell, and the school system, the coaches? What do you want them to know?
Well, you know, I want them to know, number one, I would like the school systems and the coaches to have learned and be astute to the importance of notifying parents early of any injury, of being very watchful of kids that are under your charge, whatever practice it may be, especially when you're in a more rural, in any setting, but in a rural setting, you know all the kids, you know most of the families, and everybody deserves to be watched, and parents should be notified immediately for any kind of injury or anything that is abnormal that they may see as a coach.
What do you have to say to the mothers of America whose sons are playing football?
Be careful, and it's a great sport, and I understand that a lot of kids want to play it, but just make sure you know if your kid has any type of injury, if your kid has had any kind of concussion, that they need to be thoroughly checked out and watched, and not just for an hour or a day. There's definite protocols nowadays.
Yeah.
And they need to make sure that the coaches are aware of those protocols and that the correct avenues are being pursued if a child is injured.
Every single one of these type of cases against Ridell or any helmet manufacturer has lost in court, except this case. This is the first win.
Right.
What's your opinion of your lawyer, Frank?
I think that Frank is an incredibly engaged individual and an incredibly dedicated lawyer.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he has bent over backwards for us. He has a very intelligent and I can't think of the word I want to use.
Awesome.
They're just so dedicated. Everybody has been on task. Everybody is very good at their jobs, very self-directed to do the work that they needed to do. I've been very pleased with Frank, and he just has really taken this case to heart for nothing, basically. I knew nothing of the legal system whatsoever, has never been a part of anything I've dealt with in my entire career or life. So, you know, he's really taken the lead and explained things well and just bends over backwards for us.
Mm-hmm. Your mom's been a big help to you, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's a great lady.
Yeah.
I feel bad for a lot of things.
No, that's all right. That's life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you for spending time with us.
Anytime.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
we wish you a lot of success
Thank
in
you,
your
Frank.
recovery.
Thank you.
And thanks for being a great mom.
Sure, thank you.
Frank, there's over 4,000 lawsuits right now that are pending against the NFL and Ridell and other help.
Ridell,
And that's in Philadelphia.
of the future of those lawsuits with the evidence that has come out in this case that you won.
I think Ridell's in a lot of trouble because basically the evidence that we uncovered basically shows that Ridell knew as far back as 2000 that there were problems with this helmet.
With these outside studies.
Yes,
Yeah.
they went to a company called Biokinetics in Ottawa, Canada, who'd done testing for Canadian Department of Defense and were experts in ballistics and helmets and riot helmets and stuff like this. And they told them, they said, look, there's a problem here, and the standards that you have for testing these helmets aren't, they're out the window. And Ridell never told anybody. And I don't think these people in Philadelphia knew about this evidence, and now it's come out. And I think it's the smoking gun, you know, like the gas tank in the Ford Pinto case, for instance. I mean, it spells real trouble for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, without lawyers like yourself that are digging for evidence like this, and nobody handed it to you, took a lot of time and trouble to get it, without lawyers like yourself that are pursuing protection on behalf of consumers, we would really be out of luck. I want to thank you so much for spending time on this show. You did a great job, and we'll hope to have you back again.
Well, thank you very much, and I sure appreciate you taking the time to take a look at this case for us. It's very important to the public.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.